Subscribe to After the Sirens and, leave a comment sharing your thoughts as we explore one of the most overlooked yet powerful water purification methods in human history. When modern infrastructure collapses under the strain of war or industrial catastrophe, the answer is rarely something new. In multiple post-war environments where bombed-out treatment plants, chemical contamination, and collapsed municipal systems left entire populations facing water scarcity, engineers and survivalists turned not to cutting-edge technology, but to a method perfected centuries earlier. Medieval charcoal filtration, simple, scalable, and devastatingly effective, became a lifeline in moments when modern chemistry and centralized purification were unavailable or compromised. This is not a romantic tale about primitive ingenuity. It is a documented reapplication of carbon filtration principles that date back to medieval Europe and the Islamic Golden Age, refined in modern times into what we now recognize as activated carbon systems. In the aftermath of industrial warfare, especially in parts of Europe and Asia during the 20th century, charcoal filtration became a stopgap solution for contaminated groundwater and surface water polluted by heavy metals, industrial solvents, and microbial hazards. Understanding how this method worked historically and how it was revived in post-war crises offers critical insight for historians and survivalists alike. Medieval charcoal filtration emerged from empirical observation rather than chemistry. Long before the molecular structure of carbon was understood, medieval societies noticed that water stored in charred wooden barrels spoiled less quickly and, honestly, tasted better. Records from monastic communities in Europe and scholars in the Islamic world describe the use of charred wood to clarify water. By the 13th century, layered filtration systems using sand, gravel, and charcoal were in use in parts of the Mediterranean world. Charcoal's effectiveness rests on adsorption, not absorption. Its porous structure traps impurities on its surface. When wood is burned in low oxygen conditions, it produces charcoal with a vast internal surface area. These microscopic pores bind organic compounds, toxins, and even certain pathogens. Medieval practitioners did not use the language of adsorption isotherms, but they observed the results. Water passed through charcoal became clearer, less odorous, and less likely to cause illness. The system was simple. Water flowed through layers of gravel for large sediment removal, sand for fine particulate filtering, and charcoal for chemical and biological adsorption. Maintenance required periodic replacement or recharring of the carbon layer. The technology required no electricity, no pumps, and no centralized distribution network. Industrial warfare created a new category of water crisis that modern systems could not immediately solve. 20th century wars introduced large-scale chemical contamination into civilian water systems. During and after conflicts such as the Second World War and later regional wars across Europe and Asia, factories were bombed, chemical plants ruptured, and petroleum storage facilities destroyed. Municipal treatment plants were often primary targets. In the immediate aftermath, populations faced contaminated rivers carrying fuel residues, heavy metals, phenols, and microbial hazards from sewage overflow. In post-war Germany and parts of Eastern Europe, improvised filtration systems were deployed while centralized plants were rebuilt. Engineers drew on both 19th century slow sand filtration knowledge and much older charcoal practices. Activated carbon became a cornerstone of emergency water purification. The principle was identical to medieval charcoal filtration, but refined. Wood or coal was heated in controlled conditions to create activated carbon with even greater porosity. Water passed through carbon beds that adsorbed industrial solvents, chlorine byproducts, and organic pollutants. In several devastated regions, temporary charcoal filtration units were constructed near rivers to restore potable water supplies while reconstruction efforts progressed. The chemistry behind charcoal filtration explains why it worked so well under post-war industrial conditions. Charcoal functions because carbon atoms form a lattice filled with microscopic pores. These pores create an enormous surface area relative to volume. In fact, just 1 gram of activated carbon can have a surface area exceeding 1,000 square meters. Organic contaminants, including benzene derivatives and industrial solvents that were common in post-war runoff, bind to this surface through van der Waals forces and hydrophobic interactions. Heavy metals such as lead and mercury can also adhere to carbon surfaces, particularly when combined with sand filtration and pH control. Now, although charcoal alone does not eliminate all dissolved inorganic contaminants, it dramatically reduces many toxic organic compounds and, importantly, improves both taste and odor. When paired with boiling or solar disinfection, it becomes part of a multi-barrier purification system. This really is why medieval charcoal filtration scaled so effectively into industrial emergency contexts. Its mechanism was not limited to simple sediment removal. It addressed chemical contamination in a way that sand filtration alone could not. Practical reconstruction of the medieval system reveals its continued relevance. For historians and survivalists, reconstructing a medieval charcoal filter is not just theoretical. The method actually remains viable today in grid-down scenarios. A functional system begins with container selection. Historically, wooden barrels were common, but nowadays a food-grade container or a large clay vessel can substitute quite well. The bottom layer should consist of coarse gravel to prevent clogging and allow drainage. Above this, a thick layer of clean sand provides fine sediment filtration. The final and most critical layer is charcoal. The charcoal must be properly prepared. Hardwood burned in a low-oxygen environment produces superior filtration media. The charcoal should be crushed into granules, not powder, and thoroughly rinsed to remove any ash. Layer thickness really does matter. The charcoal layer should be substantial enough to allow adequate contact time between water and carbon. Slow filtration improves adsorption efficiency, so water should pass slowly through the system. Rapid flow, on the other hand, reduces effectiveness. After filtration, additional treatment, such as boiling, ensures pathogen elimination. Maintenance requires replacing or reactivating charcoal periodically, especially if water contains high organic loads. In post-war contexts, communities constructed larger versions of this system using masonry basins and thick carbon beds. Flow rates were calculated to maximize contact time while supplying thousands of liters per day. Case studies from post-war Europe demonstrate large-scale charcoal deployment. In bombed industrial regions along the Rhine River after World War II, emergency water treatment relied heavily on carbon filtration. Industrial effluents and debris contaminated water supplies. Temporary treatment installations used layered sand and activated carbon to remove organic toxins before chlorination. While modern engineering principles guided these systems, the conceptual foundation traced directly to earlier charcoal filtration knowledge. Similarly, in Japan after wartime industrial destruction, charcoal-based filtration assisted in restoring municipal water in areas where infrastructure was compromised. Japanese tradition had long included the use of binchotan charcoal for water purification. This cultural continuity eased rapid deployment when centralized treatment plants were damaged. These examples illustrate a pattern. When advanced systems failed, carbon filtration provided resilience. It required relatively simple materials and local labor. It scaled from household barrels to municipal basins. Applying medieval charcoal filtration principles in modern preparedness planning, well, for serious survivalists and emergency planners, the historical record offers actionable guidance. Charcoal filtration is not a standalone solution for every contaminant, but it forms a powerful first line of defense. In a rural setting with potential agricultural runoff or chemical exposure, constructing a layered charcoal filtration system provides redundancy. Pre-filtering with cloth removes large debris. Gravel and sand reduce turbidity. Charcoal adsorbs organic toxins. Boiling eliminates microbial threats. Each layer compensates for limitations in the others. Communities concerned about infrastructure vulnerability can integrate small-scale charcoal filtration units into contingency planning. Stockpiling activated carbon, learning reactivation techniques, and understanding flow dynamics ensures rapid deployment during crises. For historians examining technological continuity, this method illustrates how empirical medieval practices anticipated modern environmental engineering. It underscores a broader lesson. Resilience often lies in rediscovering durable systems rather than relying exclusively on centralized complexity. The enduring relevance of charcoal filtration in a fragile industrial world. Water insecurity remains a global issue. Industrial accidents, natural disasters, and armed conflict continue to threaten centralized purification infrastructure. The medieval charcoal method, refined but fundamentally unchanged, stands as a testament to technological persistence. Its power lies in simplicity. It requires no electricity. It relies on abundant materials. It addresses chemical as well as physical contaminants. Post-war societies proved its scalability. Modern science validated its chemistry. Survivalists recognize its independence from fragile supply chains. For those committed to serious historical study, this topic is not nostalgia. It is evidence of continuity between medieval experimentation and modern environmental engineering. It is also a reminder that resilience depends on understanding foundational technologies. Subscribe to After the Sirens, share this video with fellow history enthusiasts and preparedness experts, and leave your insights in the comments. The past continues to inform survival in the present, and this channel exists to uncover those connections with depth and rigor.